then I would be delaying when to kick this program in place. So perhaps it might be a week or two before your first final, for example. So the timing of it all will depend on where you're at with your season. Of course, if you're not playing finals and you've got your last couple of weeks to go, you can experiment with this program and try it on for size and just see if it gives you that little bit of an edge. And then that's a good reference point for next year in something that you think could be helpful. The key with these tips is that you don't, because there's a long competitive season for most AFL football leagues, you don't want to bring in this training method too early. Otherwise, you'll start to notice a bit of a drop-off and some detraining, just due to the fact that the volume is quite low on this program. So it's perfect for really maximizing that work that you did over the off-season, pre-season, and in-season to this point, and working on the pointy end of your program. If we like to think of it like a iceberg, I love a visual. So if we're thinking of this like the iceberg analogy, this would be the point at the top that is on top of the water, and all the work that you did to get to this point for your athleticism is that work, that foundational work that we don't see that is underneath the water. So we need to do that work first to allow this to be effective. If you haven't been doing any strength training all season and you start doing this, you're probably not going to reap the rewards. But I'll list them down. There's 4 key tips to take into account to make sure that this program is most effective in sharpening you up for the finals. I'll also share my screen a little bit later on and show you exactly the exercise options that I like for one of our program options, one of our online high performance programs. And that gives you a good example. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and go to the live section to be able to find this episode. If you also Google AFL Strength Secrets, I'm sure it will pop up pretty quickly, this video. But I'll stick around. I'll share my screen very shortly. In terms of some updates on what's coming up on the podcast before we dive into this topic, we've got 2 Academy members both following our program online that are jumping on the podcast. Angus Littlefield, they'll be on the 19th of August at 4 p.m. And of course, Hamish Mansell on the 26th of August. So make sure to tune in then. And if you've got any questions for these 2 footballers, gun-ho footballers, make sure to reach out and send them my way. I'll make sure to add them to the run sheet. All Academy members that are listening, make sure to check out our most recent Get Better Plan episode on how to maximize your recovery to ensure that you're ready for game day. There's 2 ends of the spectrums. There's putting in the work, and we want to get that volume right, so you're not having too much fatigue in the system come game day. But also, a lot of you will be under recovery. So if you're feeling lethargic on game day, it's probably not because you're doing too much work. It's likely that you're not putting enough recovery in. I like to think of them, and I talk about this more in detail in this Academy episode, which if you're on any of our programs, you're working with our coaches, or you can join this Academy for as little as $20 a month if you want. You'll have access to this presentation, and I talk about the importance of that 1-to-1 ratio to really maximize your freshness going into upcoming games. So that means if you're having 2 training sessions a week and they go for an hour each, there's 2 hours. Then you've got your 2 to 3 gym sessions that you're hopefully doing. So there's another 2.5 hours probably there, plus game day goes for 2 hours. So there's roughly 6 to 7 hours of work. I'd like you to equal that amount of work with your recovery. So it might be an hour deep tissue massage. It could be a 30-minute pull recovery session with some dynamic mobility. Could be a 30-minute nap. You get the idea. So there's a whole list of framework of different methods that I provide in that presentation. So if you're interested, make sure to check it out. It is now live in the Get Better Plan section of our Academy membership. Let's dive into it. So first one, number 1, most important thing to get right in our Strength and Power program to maximize your finals preparation, and that is intensity, i.e. maximizing how much force we're producing. So I'm going to share my screen and show you our program and just an example of our strength and power program. Okay, so you should see that now. So this, for those that haven't used the app called Team Builder, this is what it looks like when we're looking at our weekly view. It's a great app. You can upload videos. So like at the start of the week, for anyone that's on our program, they get a bit of a weekly update to know what's ahead in the program and what's coming and the real focus of the program. So for these athletes on this program, their main goal is not to put on size with their gym program. It's to maximize their maximum strength, i.e. how strong they feel in the contest, and their explosive power, like their first 3 steps to break away, their speed, their ability to cut to their lateral speed, and of course their fend off power as well, to be able to fend opponents away. So that's the goal for this program. And as you'll see, there's some conditioning and some drills and agility work to do if you can't make football training. So whether that be due to work, whether that be due to other commitments, and you can't make training, there's at least a minimum effective dose there just to keep your training loads consistent. If you are training, then you ignore that first part of the section and you move to the lower body strength phase. So here for these athletes, we're focusing on their max strength on the Tuesday, because that's the furthest away from the upcoming game. So that's where we are putting a bit more volume into the body, a bit more tonnage, which is just simply the total amount of weight and volume that you're lifting on this Tuesday. And that's our main focus is more on strength. So the 2 key strength exercises there is the barbell box squat, where they're lifting high loads on their back, squatting to a consistent box height, and they're working up to a heavy 3. And the other one is a sled push, which is really good for your acceleration mechanics and your ability to produce max force into the ground. So they're the 2 key ones. Then from there, we've got a power exercise, the split jerk with the landmine, some core work to develop their straight arm strength and their ability to rotate through their trunk, and then finishing off with some resilience work. Weighted Nordics, great for hamstring eccentric strength, and weighted reverse Nordics, really important for strengthening their quadriceps hip flexors. And then on Wednesday, we've got our upper body program. Same thing, keeping the reps down. So like you'll see for most of our strength exercises, they're doing anywhere between 2 and 5 reps, and that allows you to lift with maximum loads. So to maximize the intensity, we're looking for high force. To get high force, we need high amount of mass, weight on the bar, and we need to be able to move that relatively quickly. All right, so it's that balance between high weight, but also weight that you can move fast with good technique. If the weight is too high and the technique goes to crap, then you're not going to maximize your total amount of force. All right, so it's that balancing act is really, really important. Medicine ball power circuits, as you can see here, we're just focusing on how we can express that force rapidly, so their rate of force development. So that's where medicine ball throws are really, really helpful. So we want to make sure that we're asking the athletes to throw that med ball as far as they can, as fast as they can. So think of that like jump training for the upper body. Love medicine balls. Then we've got Smith machine bench throws, and that's a superset with bench pull. So we've got a strength exercise with a fast prep exercise. And if you're working on focusing on trying to maximize your strength program, and you want to get stronger and faster, and we want to be in a time efficient manner, because as we know, if we're spending too much time into the gym, that's going to eat into that whole fatigue aspect. So this time of year, we want really the minimum amount of work for the maximum amount of results. Yeah, minimum amount of work for the maximum amount of results. There's no point spending hours and hours and hours in the gym if you're not training with high intensity. So it's all about minimum effective work for the maximum amount of results. So pairing exercises can be a really effective way to do that by doing a heavy with a fast lift in similar movement patterns. So like here we've got two upper body lifts, one's with a press, one's with a pull. Okay, so it shouldn't beat up your shoulders. The pulling exercise is heavy, so that's going to get you're going to recruit more motor units, more of your muscle fibers due to the amount of force that you're lifting. And then you're going to ask those muscle fibers to produce rapidly fast with the press. So we've got a good example there of how to pair exercises together. So it's time effective, but also the heavy pull is going to help assist the power production with the heavy press. Then we've got a rotational press in the torsionator, and then just some extra shoulders to finish the dumbbell beastly, which anyone on our program will know what that exercise is. You're effectively doing a bicep curl and press. Then for 5 reps, then you do 5 front raises, 5 lateral raises, then you finish with the bicep curl and press. That's the dumbbell beastly. Then on Thursday, this is when we're starting to get closer to the game. So 48 hours probably for most of you playing on a Saturday. So this is when we're focusing on more our power exercise. We really want to charge up the nervous system. We want the athletes leaving the session with more energy than when they came in. Okay, so we're really trying to potentiate their whole nervous system. So come game day, they're feeling sharp. They've got little to no muscle soreness, and they're feeling really confident that they're ready to perform at their highest level. All right, so you'll see a lot of these movements. We're focusing on speed. So a hang clean pull, encouraging the athletes. We're going to do a short range of motion, which is tip number 2. So I talked about tip number 1 was intensity, maximizing force. Tip number 2, range of motion. So this is the time of year to maximize our power production and our ability to lift heavy loads. We're actually going to reduce the range. So reduce the range on the box squat, reduce the range on the hang clean pulls. And this will allow us to lift faster and lift heavier. A good example of optimal ranges will be where does the athlete feel most explosive? If you're doing it for like a box squat, what's the range of motions they would do when they're doing like a counter movement jump, where they're trying to jump as high as they can? That's a good example of where we're trying to go with it. So you'll ultimately be able to lift your heaviest with this, while still maintain the technique. It's lighter work on the body, obviously not as demanding, by reducing the range of motion. So you're sort of getting 2 birds with 1 stone. You're stripping the body from overall load. It's a lot easier globally on the system, but then you're really allowing it to express higher forces. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, we want to reduce the volume. All right. So as you'll see, a lot of these drills, it's not like we're doing sets of 10 to 15 rep ranges. They're all anywhere between 4 and typically 8 reps. Our strength and power exercises will be typically 3 to 5 reps. Our resilience exercises, like for groins, balance work, or hamstrings, quads. So where we're working on trying to mitigate injuries, that's where we might get into maintaining a bit of that strength endurance. So like as you see here in the Copenhagen's, we've got 8 reps. Whereas all the power exercises and load exercises, it's really typically 3, 4, or 5 reps. All right. So good thing to take into account, reduce that overall volume, which reduces the fatigue. And then as long as we're maintaining that and increasing the intensity, we're still going to be moving the needle on that strength and power stimulus. And then number 4, play around with contrast. Like I said, allows you to be more time efficient. We don't want to be athletes shouldn't be in the gym for any longer than like 45-minute sessions. And that includes like some prep exercises and perhaps some stretching at the end, or some foam rolling, any recovery type work. So contrast can be a great way from its time effective, but also, as we know, with potentiation and priming, by able to lift something heavy, then lift something a moderate weight as fast as possible. So example here is like the hang clean pull is our heavy. Trap bar squat jump, continuous jumps is a moderate weight. There might be like 40 kilos on the trap bar. And we're moving it as fast as possible by jumping as high as possible continuously. And then our overspeed, so explosive movement, being able to focus on high velocity, is a band around the rig, and you're pulling that bar right down, so it's got high band tension, and then jumping as high as you can. Okay, so that's our overspeed squat jump. From there are 3 ways. So the heavy through to fast is the way to follow that exercise. Similar with our chin, our power exercise. So RDL is our heavy posterior chain exercise. Then we go to power chins, where you're trying to be explosive with your body weight. So you're pulling either your chest to the bar, or as you pull up, you actually release your hands. So you're doing like an explosive pull. And then to finish, we've got a medicine ball throw, where you're looking to launch the ball as far as you can. All right, so that's another example. Then it finishes with the resilience work. as you guys have been well aware of on all podcasts over the years, I've talked about priming. So here's an example of a prime workout you can do. 5-10 minutes of your own run drills and mobility. They should be sharp, high intensity, high octane, high energy. Then from there, we complete 3 rounds of each letter. So part A, we've got 6 banded fend-offs, which is exactly that fend-off pattern. Rotate ankles and hips and shoulders all at once. So you're producing force rapidly quick. Bands are great because they're low load on the body. And they really encourage you to move fast. Obviously, as the tension on the band increases, the harder they get. So you want lots of momentum with bands. So it really encourages. So great for power training. Banded wood chops and banded broad jumps. So all 3, they're low load on the body, low load on the joints. You're not going to be sore the next day, but they're, like I said before, great for rate of force development, which is what we want. Then part B, so 3 rounds of that, 6 reps each side, and then finish with 3 10-meter sprints every 20 seconds. Nothing better than sprinting hard accelerations to get the nervous system going. And then part C, just some extra upper body arms and things if the athlete likes a pump. So that would be an option. All 3 of these would be an option. But that one particularly. So if the athlete doesn't care too much for getting a bit of a pump, footballers generally love it, just to get themselves a bit of a pump the day before a game. That's just 10 barbell shrugs to get the upper neck going, 10 bicep curls, 10 skull crushes for triceps. So that's all 3 of those sections. So an athlete might be really nervous sprinting. I wouldn't get them doing the sprints then the day before. I would take out part B. Some athletes couldn't care less about getting a pump on, so I'd take out part C, and they would just do part A, for example. Typically, all athletes wouldn't have an issue with the banded exercises because it's low risk and it just gets their system firing. So depending on the athlete, now's the time as well that like on our program, we've had a prime going all year and we started in pre-season and pre-season matches. So the athletes on our program are used to it and they know that it's optional. So by now they would have either been doing it every week as a routine or they canned it at the start of the year and you wouldn't bring it back now. So that's just a personal preference. But I would say if, like I said, you got 2 weeks to go and you know you're not playing finals, try this program out and see what you think. Like always, we've got a free 14-day trial. So if you are interested in trying out that program, that's our strength and power program. We've also got a gainers program. So for those who want to put on size, put on some muscle mass, feel free to join. You can find that on our homepage. Go to propelled.com and we've got all our programs there, both for AFLW, so female footballers, male footballers, juniors. We've got a junior athlete development program. So if you're new to the weights room, or if you're a parent listening to this and your child is new to strength training, there's a program for them as well. But they're the 4 tips. So maximize your intensity, reduce the range of motion to help with the overall load, reduce the volume to mitigate fatigue. And number 4, play around with contrast lifting, pairing, supersetting an exercise that's heavy with an exercise that's fast. That's it for this episode. If you have any questions on this topic, make sure to email me or direct message me on social media. And I look forward to seeing you on our next live.